everybody, and welcome. My name is the Shy Hat, and we are HackerFrogs. Alright, so today what we're going to do is we're going to be walking through the installation process of VirtualBox from Oracle. This is a virtualization platform which allows us to use virtual machines, and we're also going to be downloading Kali Linux, which is the industry standard cybersecurity Linux distribution. So first we're going to take a look at VirtualBox. So if you want to download VirtualBox in order to use virtual machines, you're going to want to go to virtualbox.org/wiki/downloads, just like over here. And from there, you'll want to choose your operating system, whether you're on a Windows machine or a Mac OS machine or a Linux machine. So since I'm using Windows, I'm going to click on this link right here, Windows Hosts, and that's going to download the installation file over here. So let's go ahead and open up that folder. And it's going to ask us if we want to allow changes, that is the installation of the VirtualBox rather. And we click on yes, and it's going to run through the installation wizard. So all we need to do is click on next, and then next again, and then yes, and then yes, and then install. So as soon as VirtualBox has finished installing, we just need to unclick this one right here, Start Oracle VM VirtualBox, and then click on Finish. After that, we'll need to download the Kali Linux disk image before we can install it as a virtual machine on our system. So we go over to this website right here. So it's www.kali.org/get-kali/Kali-installer-images. So over here, you'll want to scroll down. Sorry, you're going to want to click on this Virtual Machines button right here. And then you'll want to scroll down until we can see the VirtualBox icon right here. And then we want to click on this button right here to download the image. We've already downloaded the image beforehand in our case, so we can find it in our downloads directory. So before we can use it, we're going to need to extract those files. So we're going to go over to our downloads directory, and we're going to find the file right here. So it's going to be Kali Linux 2024 1 VirtualBox AMD 64 in our case. So to extract this file, we're going to need to right click it and then choose the extract all selection right here. So we just need to click on extract, and it's going to take a little while to extract. So what we can do is we can start up VirtualBox in the meantime. So in the search bar, we can look it up, VBox or VirtualBox, this right here. So click on this. So inside of the VirtualBox manager, to create a new virtual machine, we're going to click on the New button right here. So click on New, and then we're going to run through the virtual machine creation wizard. So under Name, we just want to make this nice and identifiable. We're going to call this Kali Linux. And then for the rest of these options right here, we definitely need to make sure that the type is set to Linux. And for the version, we're going to click on the drop-down bar, and we're going to make sure it's Debian 64-bit, because that's the version of Debian that Kali Linux is. Okay, so after that, we want to click on Next. So for base memory, it's going to be, it looks like it's going to be 2 gigabytes of memory. So we can keep it like that. If you have a more powerful system, of course you can allocate more memory to the system. But in this case, 2 gigabytes should be okay. And for processors, if you have some processors to spare, I suggest setting the processors to at least 2, so that the virtual machine doesn't run too slowly. Okay, so after that, you want to click on Next. And for disk size, we don't need to assign a disk size right now. What we do is that we use an existing virtual hard disk file. So we want to click on that option. And then it says right now it says empty. We want to click on this. We want to click on this folder rather. And then we're going to add. So click on the add button. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to our downloads folder. So we're basically navigating to the folder where we extracted our Kali Linux image. So after navigating to that folder, we see we have this file here, which is a virtual disk image, and this one is about 13.6 gigs in size. So we want to click on that, and then when we want to click on open. So after that, we just need to click on this button right here, which is labeled Choose. And then we want to click on Next. So the summary over here, just want to double check all of this. This looks good. We're just going to click on Finish. All right. So from here, we can start our virtual machine by clicking on the green Start button. And that's going to, so the virtual machine is going to take a little bit of time to initialize. So I'm going to resize it. So for people who haven't used Kali Linux before, the default username and password for Kali Linux is Kali as the username and Kali as the password. So just in case you wanted to, you were wondering about why you can't log in. So to log in as the Kali Linux user, so the username over here, this is the login screen. So the username is going to be Kali, and then the password is going to be Kali. So just click on Login. Okay, so before we finish up this tutorial, I'm going to point out a couple of highlights. So if you want to start up your web browser inside of your Kali Linux machine, you want to click on this keyboard shortcut, this shortcut right here, which is for Firefox. This is how you open up your web browser inside your Kali Linux machine. As well, you can click on this shortcut right here to open up your terminal. So the first thing you want to do, So I'm going to adjust this window right here, and I'm going to make it nice and opaque. So the first thing you want to do after you create your virtual machine, your Kali Linux virtual machine, is that you want to update the system. So update all of the software packages. So if you've downloaded the latest image, it should be fine. But we should be in the habit of doing this before we take a snapshot, anyways. So what we want to do is we want to become the root user first of all. So it's going to be sudo su to switch user to the root user, and it's going to ask for a password. Remember that the password is Kali, K-A-L-I. After that, we can update and upgrade all the packages for the system, and you do it in this way. So it's apt update -y, and we want to add another command over here with the double ampersand. It's going to be apt upgrade -y. So what this is going to do is going to update all the packages on the system, and then it's going to update all of the software on the system. So if you're not working as the root user when you input this command, you're going to have to use the sudo command in front of all of this. So we're going to be getting going with our HackTheBox walkthroughs in just a little bit, but I wanted to take the time before that to show people how to install Kali Linux as a virtual machine on their system, because that's how we're going to be accessing HackTheBox. We're going to be using a Kali Linux virtual machine. So this shouldn't take too much longer, because this is a pretty current version of Kali Linux. So there's not much to update as far as there's not much to update as far as upgrading the system is concerned. But you want to make sure to do this before you take a snapshot of the system. Okay, so that looks like this might take a little bit of time, so I'm not going to waste too much of your time on the stream by doing this, but I'm just going to say, so the first thing you want to do when you want to install Kali Linux, the first thing you want to do is you want to download and install VirtualBox. And then after that, you want to download the Kali Linux image from the kali.org website. And then you want to create the Kali machine. After you created the Kali machine, you definitely want to update the system before you take a snapshot of the machine. And then after you've taken a snapshot, you can always revert to the snapshot in case anything bad happens to your virtual machine. But I'll just leave this. I'll leave this as is, and I'm going to switch over to my other Kali Linux machine. So I'm going to drag this away, and I'm going to grab my Kali Linux virtual machine that I already have, because that was running in a virtual machine as well. And I definitely don't want to do I definitely don't want to run virtual machines inside of virtual machines, because that's going to get a bit messy after a little bit. So I'm going to resize my my Kali Linux over here. Hold on. Oops, I made it a little bit too Okay, let's try that again. Having a bit of trouble resizing this, but I'll do my best. Okay, I think that's about good enough. All right, so the next thing we want to do is we want to access HackTheBox. So inside of your Kali Linux virtual machine, I use Firefox to access the HackTheBox site. So the default login page is going to be account.hackthebox.com/login. Okay, so I'm going to grab my credentials from my password manager. So this is going to be HackTheBox. Just looking it up now. All right, so my email is theshyhat@gmail.com, and I'm going to sign in. And now I have to insert, I have to put in my password, so I'm going to paste it in. And I'm going to sign in. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a sore throat. Okay, so don't save. All right, so from here, we've signed into the main HackTheBox account. And from here, we can access the other parts of the HackTheBox website. So you want to access HackTheBox Labs over here. So I'm going to click on the link. And now we're at app.hackthebox.com on the login screen. So all we need to do is click on the Continue with HTB Account button over here. So just click on that. And we should be logged in after a second or two. Okay, are we logged in? Let me click on this again. Okay, seems like looks like we're having slight difficulties. Hold on, I'm gonna try doing this again. Hopefully it resolves itself. So we want to go to, let's see, it's going to be app.hackthebox.com. I'm going to click on that. And then I want to click on the Continue with HTTP Account button over here. Okay. So after trying a couple of times, we managed to get in. All right. So the first thing you want to do when so we're going to be accessing the starting point series of challenges. So the first thing we need to do is we need to download our OpenVPN key. So how we do that is we click on the connection settings button over here. So it's going to be at the top of the screen after you've logged in, and click on Connect to HTTP. And what you want to do is you want to click on the starting point button over here. So click on starting point, and then it's going to give you two options over here. It's either OpenVPN or PwnBox. We want to click on the OpenVPN button over here. So click on that, and then we have our VPN access, VPN server, and then we want to click on the download VPN button over here. So click on that. and that's going to download the OpenVPN key. So this is this file right here, starting point, and then your username .ovpn. So what we want to do is we want to copy this over to a secure folder, because we don't want to have it just sitting around in our downloads file. So I'm going to create a terminal. So inside of my terminal, so I'm root right now, but I'm going to switch back to the Kali user. So what I want to do is I want to go over to the downloads folder. And then from here, we see that there is the OpenVPN file over here. So we're going to move that into the root directory. So because the root directory is a protected directory, we have to use sudo to move this file over there. So it's going to be sudo mv for move, and then we want to move it from downloads, and then it's going to be starting point underscore your username .ovpn, and we want to move it into the root directory, so it's going to be /root/, and after so we're going to, because this is a sudo command, we need to provide our password. The default password for Kali Linux, the Kali Linux user, is Kali, K-A-L-I. And after that, we've moved the file into the root directory. So when we use OpenVPN and we point it to the OpenVPN key, we're going to use the one that is in the root directory. So from here, we're going to run OpenVPN. So bear in mind that OpenVPN has to be run with the sudo command. So it's going to be sudo OpenVPN, and it's going to be starting underscore point underscore your username. Okay, so in my case it's the shy hat .ovpn. So run that. And if it's running properly, then you should see all of this type of output appear. And at that point, our connection to the HackTheBox starting point network should be open. So we can minimize this window. We're not going to close it because we still need to keep this open in the background. So we're going to minimize this terminal window, and then on the HackTheBox page, we can refresh it. So we're going to reload the page. And it's taking its sweet time loading back up again. So I'm going to try clicking on this connection settings button. Looks like this is not loading very fast. All right, we're going to try reloading this page. Okay, so now it works. All right, so now that we see the starting point, so there's this button over here labeled starting point, and the button is green, so that indicates that that our connection to the starting point has been established. From there, we can actually navigate over to the starting point section now. So on the left-hand side, starting point should be at the top of the menu bar over here. So just click on starting point on this left-hand section of the screen, and then it's going to give us a number of tiers. So these are the different levels of machines at the starting point. So there's tier 0, there's tier 1, and there's tier 2. with tier 0 being the easiest machines to compromise, and then tier 1, then tier 2 being the most difficult machines at the starting point. So we definitely want to click on tier 0, so just click on that, and then we scroll down, and these are the different machines we're going to be covering tonight. So we've got the first one, Meow, and then Fawn, and then Dancing, and then Redeemer. So these are all very easy challenges, and they're designed to let people understand the basics of network exploitation. So first of all, we're going to start our Meow challenge over here. So we're going to click on that. And these challenges also come with a walkthrough, just in case you wanted to get some insight onto how to solve the challenge. But we're going to be walking through this challenge right now. So at the beginning over here, it says to attack the target machine, you must be on the same network. So we just connected to the network over here in the previous step. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to move on to the next step, which is called spawn machine. So spawn the target machine, and the IP will show here. So we need to click on the green button over here labeled spawn machine, and that's going to spin up the virtual machine that's associated with this challenge. So it might take between 30 seconds and a minute for the machine to fully spin up. In the meantime, I'm going to grab my notes and prepare to solve the machine. Hold on. Okay, so right now you'll know that the machine is about ready to start when we see the network error over there at the bottom of the screen. So I'm also going to prepare a terminal, because we're going to be using the terminal to do some testing on the machine. So just click on the terminal shortcut button, and not this one, but this one. I'm also going to make the terminal nice and big. Oops, just a little bigger. Okay, great. All right, so let's go back to the web page. It looks like it's still initializing, so we're just going to wait a little bit longer. So if it doesn't finish initializing in about a minute or so, we're going to reload the page. So like it says over here, it may take a minute for HTTP to recognize your connection. If you don't see an update after 2 to 3 minutes, refresh the page. Okay, so I'm going to try refreshing the page. So I'm just going to reload it. And I'm going to click on the spawn machine button again. So in the meantime, we're going to go back to our terminal. So the first thing we're going to do after the virtual machine associated with the challenge is finished initializing is we're going to use the ping command, usually with C4, and then we're going to insert the IP address that we're provided by HackTheBox. It's not necessarily going to be this IP address right here. This is from a previous command. So the ping command is going to reach out to the machine on the network, and if we receive a response, then we know that the machine is online. We always give a -C and then a number to make sure that the command doesn't run forever, but for a number of counts equal to whatever we provide in the argument. In this case, it's 4. So let's go back to the web page, and it looks like our virtual machine has finished initializing with this IP address. So the convenient thing is that we can copy this IP address by just clicking on it. So we click on that, and then it says IP copied. So we can now do testing on this machine. So go back to our terminal, and then we plug in our IP. So it's ping -C4 for 4 count, and then this IP address. So just run this command, and it looks like we're receiving packets from this machine, which means that it is up. All right, 4 packets transmitted, 2 received, 50% packet loss. That's not great, but it's up. All right, so let's use Nmap to scan this machine further. All right, so Nmap is the tool of choice for network security testers. So I'm going to run it with the following flags. So it's -VV for very verbose, which means the output is going to appear as it scans, meaning that I don't have to wait for the entire scan to finish before I get any output. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make sure that it is running on 4 threads. So that's going to be -T4, and then I'm going to do -P- so that I can scan all the ports on this particular host. And then lastly, we're going to provide the IP address. So I'm just going to paste that in again. Okay, so when I run this command, we're going to send a bunch of scanning packets to this particular server, and we're trying to determine which networking ports on this target are open. So we're going to run the command, and immediately inside of in the output we see that we discovered an open port on 23 TCP. So 23 TCP is associated with the Telnet protocol, or the Telnet program rather. So Telnet is the precursor of secure shell SSH, and Telnet. Well, the reason that we don't use Telnet anymore is because although Telnet you could use Telnet to log into systems remotely, there was no security built into Telnet, which means that everything that was sent back and forth using Telnet was all sent in the clear, which means that if anybody was able to intercept that traffic, then they would be able to see exactly what was being communicated through it, which is bad news. All right, so I'm going to resize my window. Hold on. Okay, great. Okay, so we know that that this port is open, port 23. So we're going to do a follow-up Nmap scan, and in this Nmap scan, we use very verbose again, and then we do T4. But we're going to do port 23 because port 23 was the reportedly open port. So it's -P23. and we want to determine the version and and we want to run any default scripts on this particular port. So we're going to do -sv for version, and then -sc for scripts. And then we're going to finish off with the IP address, just like that, and then we run the command. So because we're only scanning against one port, this this nmap scan should come back relatively quickly. Okay, so it says here, so port 23 is open. It says that the service is telnet, and then the version of telnet is Linux telnet D. All right, and so the next thing we want to do is we want to try connecting to telnet. So telnet has its own program that we can that is installed by default on Kali Linux, conveniently enough. So we can do telnet. So the command is telnet and then the IP address. So telnet and then the IP address over here. We want to run that. So we're now connected to telnet. We're connected to the server here, and it says the escape character is this over here, and we get this little banner over here, HackTheBox, and it says meow login. Okay, great. So we can try to log in using default credentials as any number of different users. Let's try logging in as admin, and the password we're gonna say maybe the password is blank. Okay, so login correct. Next we'll try using the username root. Okay, so it seems that we can log in using the root username, and it doesn't ask us for a password. So we can see over here that that we've logged in, and we see a bunch of system information over here. So from here we can do ls, and we have one file and one directory in here. So we do ls-la. Let's try that again. Sorry. Okay, so we have flag.txt, and then we have the snap directory over here. So what we're after is this file right here, flag.txt. So we can read that using the cat command. So it's cat flag.txt. Run that. And this is the end of the exercise over here, because this is our goal. This flag right here. So at this point, what do we do? What do we do to solve this challenge? So the first thing we did was we ran an nmap scan, initial nmap scan on the target, and that revealed that port 23 telnet was open. So from there, we were able to use the telnet command to access the service, and we were able to gain access to the server by using default credentials. In this case, it was root, and that gave us root access to the machine. So if we do pwd, it tells us that we're in the root directory, and if we ask who am I, then it says that we are the root user. So the root user has the highest level of access on a system. So we essentially have total control over the system. So to conclude this exercise, let's answer the questions associated with the challenge. So we can go back to the web page, and we can answer the question, task 1 here. What does the acronym VM stand for? Okay, so VM stands for virtual machine, and we can submit this as an answer. And that is correct. So the second question is, what tool do we use to interact with the operating system in order to issue commands via the command line, such as the one to start our VPN connection? It's also known as a console or shell. So what program do we use to interact with the operating system? So in this case, we used a terminal program. So the answer is terminal. And submit as the answer. And then task 3, question 3. What service do we use to form our VPN connection to the HTTP labs? So if you remember, we had to connect to the HTTP labs to connect to their network. We had to download a key in order to do that. And the program we used was a VPN program called OpenVPN. So that is the answer, OpenVPN. So the next question is, what tool do we use to test our connection to the target with an ICMP echo request? So we used a program to ping out to the server to make sure that it was up, and the program is called ping. Okay, so sometimes when we send our answers, or when we click on buttons in the HackTheBox website, it can be a little bit unresponsive. So we'll try submitting the answer again. Okay, so that answer is correct. Question number 5: what is the name of the most common tool for finding open ports on a target? Okay, so this was the tool that we used to scan for open ports on the target, and remember that the name of the program is Nmap. So we submit this as the answer. And we'll submit the answer again. Okay, so that is correct. Next question is, what service do we identify on port 23 TCP during our scans? So if you remember, we found a program running on, we found a service running on port 23, and that was telnet. So we submit at as the answer. Okay, and that is the correct answer. And the next question is, what username is able to log into the target over telnet with the blank password? So we were able to log into telnet using a certain username, and that username was root. And the last thing we need to do for this exercise is we need to submit the root flag. So we just copied that from the terminal, but we can go back and copy it again. So we can highlight this and then copy it with Control-Shift-C, and then we go back to the web page and paste in the flag and click on Submit Flag. Okay, and then it tells us that this box has been pwned. So we're just going to say OK, and then we're going to move on to the next box. But before we move on to the next challenge, we should go back up to the top of this task. Okay, so I would have said that we need to terminate the machine, but it looks like the machine automatically terminated after we finished the machine. Okay, so that's great. So we can move on to the next challenge. So the next challenge is called Fawn. So we just click on this to open it up, this the challenge dialog box over here. And the first thing we need to do, just like the last machine, is we need to spawn the machine by clicking on this button right here. So click on the spawn machine button, and it might take a couple of minutes to initialize. And after it finishes initializing, we're going to repeat the same steps we did for the first machine. That is, we're going to ping the machine to make sure that it is available from our network, and then we're going to use the Nmap program to scan the machine for open ports. Okay, so it looks like I need to resize my window again. Hold on. This is a bit messy, but please bear with me. Okay, so I'm going to reload this page. Oh, wait, no, it just finished initializing. That's great. Okay, so this is the IP address for the machine over here. So we just need to click on this to copy the IP address and then go over to our terminal. So I'm going to clear the terminal. It looks like I'm going to have to spawn a new terminal. Hold on. So I'm going to close this out, and then I'm going to spawn a new terminal. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to ping the machine. So it's going to be ping and then C4 and then the IP address. So we're going to paste in the IP address that we copied, and bear in mind that the IP address for your virtual machine is probably not going to be the same as mine. So you definitely want to get your own virtual machine IP address instead of this one over here. But you're going to run the command, and it's going to send four ping packets, and then it's going to say 4 packets transmitted, 4 received. Okay, so that's great. That means that the machine is up and we're able to access it. So from here, we're going to use our Nmap program. So Nmap double V for very verbose. We're going to put 3 threads on it, and then we're going to scan all the ports on our target IP address. So once again, it's Nmap and then -VV for very verbose, and then number of threads, the more the merrier, to make it a little bit faster. And then we're going to specify which ports we want to scan by doing -P-, which means every port on the system. There are about 65,000 of them. But after that, we're going to run the command and we're going to see what is available on the system. So we run the command, and the first thing it does is that it tells us that it discovered an open port on port 21 TCP. All right, so 21 TCP. So we're going to create another terminal so that we can start investigating this particular port. Let me grab my notes just a second. Okay, so normally I would say to let the nmap scan finish, but in this case there are no other ports that are open on the system. There's just this port. So I'm going to exit out of this nmap command with Control-C, and then I'm going to clear the terminal, and I'm going to run my next command. So the next command, after you determine that which ports are open, you need to run another nmap command to enumerate the ports. So by enumeration we mean we're trying to gather as much information as we can about the open ports. So it's going to be an nmap again with the same number of threads, except we're going to be scanning port 21, and we're also going to try to determine if any of our default scripts will work on that, and we're also trying to determine whether or not we can get the version information from the scan, and then we're going to plug in our IP address just like this. Okay, so we're scanning port 21 and we're trying to determine what version it is and whether or not any of our default scripts tell us anything about the service. So let's run this. Okay, so from the scan results are thus. So port 21 TCP open. It says that the service is FTP, and the version of the FTP server is VSFTPD 3.0.3. So sometimes the version of the software is very important because there are particular exploits that only work on certain versions of software, usually outdated versions of software. And when we run our scripts on the FTP server, we get some interesting stuff here. We see that this script over here, FTP anon, that scans for anonymous FTP logins. It says anonymous FTP logins allowed, FTP code 230, which means that we're able to log into the FTP service as an anonymous user and interact with the system. And we also see that there is a file inside of the FTP directory over here called flag.txt, and that's probably our objective over here. Okay, that's great. So with all that being said, we can use the FTP program to interact with the FTP server that we just found. So the command is going to be FTP and then the IP address of the server. So we run the command, and then it says name, so it's asking for a username. We're going to give it the name anonymous. So this is how you log into an FTP server if it has anonymous login enabled. So you supply the username anonymous, and then as the password, you just want to leave it blank. So it's either going to be blank or the password is also going to be anonymous. So in this case, we're going to try the blank password. And then it says login is successful, remote system type is Unix, using binary mode to transfer files. Okay, so we're now inside of a FTP terminal. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find out what's inside the directory, and we can do so by using the ls command. So the ls command says, here comes the directory listing, and it says that there is this flag inside the directory here. It is called flag.txt. What we want to do is download this, and we can do that by using the get command. So this is a FTP specific command right here to download files. So it's just get and then the name of the file. So get flag.txt, run that, and that's going to download the file to our machine. Okay, so after that, This is all we needed to do in FTP. So we can just exit out of here. So just give it the exit command, and we're going to be logged out. So if we take a look at our directory here, we see that the flag.txt file has been downloaded to our machine. So we can just use the regular old cat command to read it, and this is the result. So this is what we were looking for. This is the flag. So we're going to come back to this, but first let's answer the questions associated with this challenge. So we can go back to our web page. So task 1, the question is, what does the 3-letter acronym FTP stand for? So FTP stands for File Transfer Protocol. So that is the answer, File Transfer Protocol. Submit that as the answer. And then question 2, which port does the FTP service listen on usually? So FTP usually listens on port 21, just like what we found from the Nmap scan. Submit that as the answer. The next question is, what acronym is used as the secure version of FTP? So there is a more secure version of FTP, and the acronym for the secure version of FTP is SFTP. So that is the answer, SFTP. Okay, so we're going to submit the answer again, and that was correct. All right, the next question is, what is the command we can use to send an ICMP echo request to test our connection to the target? So the first thing we did in this exercise is we used a ping command to try to reach out to the target to see if it was responsive to us. So the answer is ping. Okay, so the next question is, from your scans, what version of FTP is running on the target? Okay, so what version of FTP is running on the target? So we can get the answer for this from our Nmap scan. So we go back to our Nmap scan results over here. So it says port 21 open FTP, and the version is VSFTPD 3.0.3. So we can copy this and present this as the answer for the question. So Control-Shift-C to copy, and then back to the web page. Paste this in and click on Submit Answer, and that is the answer. Also, from the scans, what OS type is running on the target? Okay, so this is also something we can get from our Nmap scan. So at the end of the Nmap scan over here, we see this line right here, Service Info OS Unix. So this is a Unix OS system, which is very similar to Linux, but it's slightly different. So let's go over back to the web page and submit Unix as the answer. All right, question 7. What is the command we need to run in order to display the FTP client help menu? All right, so if we want to, if we want to display a help menu for any command, we generally want to use the -H, flag. So in this case, because we're using FTP, it's going to be FTP-H, and that is the answer. Okay, question number 8. What is the username that is used over FTP when you want to log in without having an account? So this is the username we use to log in to FTP because the FTP server was set to allow anonymous login, and the answer is anonymous. Anonymous. And the next question is, what is the response code we get from for the FTP message, login successful? All right, to get this answer, we can go back to our terminal. So we used FTP, and then we used anonymous as the username, and afterwards we got a code 230, login successful. So the answer is 230. Question number 10. There are a couple of commands we can use to list the files and directories available on the FTP server. One is dir. What is the other that is a common way to list files on a Linux system? Okay, so FTP, in FTP you can use 2 different commands to get the directory contents. One is dir, and the other one is the one that we used, which is ls. All right, so the last question before we submit our flag is, what is the command used to download the file we found on the FTP server? In this case, we used the FTP get command to download the file. So the answer is get. Okay, and the last thing we need to do is we need to submit the root flag. Let's go back to the terminal. And this is the value of the flag. So let's copy this with Control-Shift-C, and then go back to the page, paste in the flag, and submit it. Okay, and with that, we've finished this machine. So we're going to click OK. So to summarize this machine right here, we used Nmap to scan the machine, and the Nmap scan revealed that the FTP service was open on the server. So we scanned the machine, and we found that it was that FTP was configured with anonymous login enabled. So we were able to log in using anonymous login, and we were able to obtain the flag file for this exercise through the anonymous user account. Alright, so that's the end of this challenge. So we're going to move on to our third challenge of the night, and this one is called dancing. So this one is a slightly more complicated challenge, but that's fine. We'll go through it slowly. So click on the task, click on the challenge over here, and we're going to need to spawn the machine again. So click on spawn machine, and that's going to initialize the virtual machine. It's going to take between a minute or two to fully initialize. All right, so our target machine is finished initializing. We want to copy the IP address, so we're just going to click on that, and that's going to copy our IP address. Let's go over to our terminal, and from our terminal we want to ping the system to make sure that it's up. So it's going to be ping C4 and then the IP address. So we use ping with the C4 flag over here to make sure that it only pings 4 times before finishing, because otherwise the ping command is going to keep on going forever, and that's not what we want. So 4 packets were transmitted, 4 received, 0 packet loss. Okay, so the machine is up. So from here we can run our nmap command. So we run nmap with the -vv flag for very verbose output, and that's going to let us see output before the scan finishes. So that's gonna let us react to the results of the scan much faster than if we wait for the entire scan to finish. Next, we use -t4 to run nmap faster. It's going to run on 4 threads. So we generally want to give it a number of threads that is high but not too high, because if we set it too high, then we're going to get a lot of inaccurate results on our nmap scan. So next we're going to set the port, which ports we want to scan. Initially we do -p- in order to scan every port on the system. So that's going to be from port 1 to port 60,500 something. And then the last thing we do is we supply the IP address, and then we fire off our scan. So first off, we see that we see discovered open ports on 139, on 445, and 135. So this indicates that that this server is running SMB, otherwise known as server message block. We also see a bunch of discovered ports on the 40,000 range over here, which is also typical for Windows machines that are running the RCP service. So that being said, we don't need to wait for the scan to finish, but we can cancel out of the scan, because these are the ports that we need to pay attention to when we're running our subsequent scan. So we're going to run our second nmap scan. Once again, it's very verbose. Once again, it's 4 threads, but now it's on specific ports 139 and 445 and 135. And then we're going to set it to return the version of the services, as well as to run any default scripts on these services once the type of service has been enumerated. Okay, so the last thing we do is we supply the IP address, and then we run our second nmap scan to try to enumerate the open ports. Okay, so let's take a look. So the output says that 135 is MSRSP, and the second port over here is 139, and this is NetBIOS, which is also associated with the SMB service. And port 445 over here is Microsoft DS. Microsoft DS is Microsoft Directory Services, which indicates that this is running in SMB service, server message block. Server message SMB, otherwise known as server message block, is a Windows specific file sharing service. So this is kind of like the FTP service that we found on the previous box, but SMB is the Windows version of file sharing. Okay, so next, now that we know that there's SMB available on this server, we're going to try to enumerate the file shares on this particular server. So we can do that with the SMB client tool, SMB client. So it's going to be SMB client and then -L. And -L is going to list out the file shares. We need to supply the IP address, and then we're going to give it the -N to see if we can enumerate file shares without a valid username and password. So let's run this, so that we see that from the results over here, we see the share names and the types and the comments. So we have to note that that these first 3 file shares over here are administrator file shares. We know that from the $ at the end of the file share names, which means that these file shares are probably not file shares that we can access. But there's this extra file share over here called work shares, and we can probably access this. Let's try to access this file share using the SMB client program one more time. So it's SMB client. And then we have to specify the IP address. So it's going to be // and then the IP address, and then another /, and then the name of the file share. In this case, it's work shares. And we're going to access it without a valid username and password with the -N flag. So let's run that. So we're logged in now. We could try typing help to get a list of all possible commands, but inside of SMB, we're usually using Windows commands, in which case we can get the directory list with the dir command. So we see here the dir command, there are 2 directories in here. There's one called amy.j, and there's a directory called james.p. So let's try going into this directory first, amy.j. So it's going to be cd amy.j. So after we've entered this directory, we're going to dir again. and we see this file over here called worknotes.txt. Let's try downloading this file. We can use the get command just like we did with the FTP server. We use get and then the name of the file, get worknotes.txt, and that's going to download the file to our system. Okay, so next we're going to back out of this directory, cd ... and we're going to enter the other directory, which is james.p, cd james.p, and we're going to take a look at what's in this directory. And there's a file called flag.txt. So let's get this file, get flag.txt. This is probably the objective file for this particular challenge. Okay, awesome. So let's exit out of this server by giving the exit command. All right, so back at our Kali machine over here, we see that we have flag.txt and we have to also have worknotes.txt. Let's read the worknotes.txt file for fun. Okay, start an Apache server on Linux machine, secure FTP server, set WinRM on dancing. Okay, so this is kind of superfluous stuff, but let's read the flag.txt file. And this is the objective for this exercise. All right. So before we copy this over to the challenge, let's finish all the other questions for this challenge first. Question 1 is, what does the 3-letter acronym SMB stand for? So SMB stands for Server Message Block. Okay, the next question is, what port does SMB use to operate at? So there were a few different ports that were associated with SMB, but the main port that is associated with SMB is port number 445. The next question is, what is the service name for port 445 that came up in our Nmap scan? Okay, so we're looking for something S dash something S. So if we go back to our Nmap scan, we see that port 445, the service here is listed as Microsoft-DS. So that's the answer we're looking for. Question number 4, what is the flag or switch that we can use with the SMB client utility to list the available shares on dancing? Okay, so if you remember, we used a particular flag with SMB client to list out the file shares, and that was -L. The next question is, how many shares are there on dancing? Okay, so remember that we saw a number of different file shares, but most of the file shares that we saw were administrative file shares, but there was one file share that we could actually access. Altogether, there were 4 file shares. The next question is, what is the name of the share that we were able to access at the end with the blank password? Okay, so if you remember, the name of the file share that we accessed was work shares. And the next question is, what is the command we can use within the SMB shell to download the files we find? Okay, so we downloaded the files that we found inside the SMB file share using the get command. And lastly, we have to submit the root flag. So in the flag.txt file, we found this value right here. So this is what we're going to submit as the flag. Okay, so with that, the dancing machine has been completed. All right, so we just need to click on OK, and we have finished the challenge. Okay, so what did we do in that challenge? So we scanned the machine, and we found that there was an SMB service, SMB file sharing service available on the machine. So we were able to use SMB client, the SMB client program, to first list out the number of file shares, list out the different file shares on the server, and then we were able to log into one of the file shares using no password, because the SMB service was configured so that we could log into that one file share without a password. And then we were able to download the target files, and we were able to get the flag by downloading the files through SMB. All right, so that's the dancing challenge. So let's move on to our last challenge. This is the Redeemer challenge. So click on the challenge, and the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to spawn the machine. So click on the green button to spawn the machine. And while it's initializing, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup over at so I'm going to remove some of these files that I've been accumulating, and I'm also going to move into a temporary directory. Alright, so let's go back to the web page, and hopefully it's going to finish initializing soon. Okay, so our target machine has finished initializing. So the first thing we need to do is we need to copy over the IP address by clicking on it. So click on this, and the IP address is going to be copied over to our clipboard. We're going to go over to our terminal, and the first thing we want to do is we want to ping the machine to make sure that it is responsive on our network. So we're going to do ping and then -C4 for 4 count, and then the IP address. So this is going to send 4 ping packets to the target machine, and if we receive packets back, then we are considered to be able to communicate with this machine. So that's great. The next thing we want to do is we want to use the nmap command to determine which open ports are available on the machine. So we do nmap with the -VV for very verbose, which is going to give us some output before the scan finishes. We're going to do -T4 for 4 concurrent threads, which is going to make the program run faster than it normally would. And then we're going to specify which ports to scan, in which case we're going to do -P-, which indicates every port on the system. And then we're going to paste in the IP address, which is the target. So we're going to run this command over here, and it's going to scan all the ports on the system to see which of them are open. And it is reported here that there is port 6379 available on this target. So 6379, that is not a typical port that you see open on a server. So let's investigate what that particular service is. So because I've done this before, I'll tell you that there are no other open ports on this system, so we can abort the nmap scan, and then we can rerun the nmap scan to enumerate that open port. So to enumerate the open port, we're going to give very similar command to the last command, except that this time we're going to run against port 6379, and we're going to give it the SC flag to see if there are any scripts so we can run against this particular service. And then we're going to do the -S_V to get the version of this particular service. And of course, the last thing we need to do is supply the IP address. Okay, so the result of the scan has come back, and the port is 6379, and the service is reported as Redis. So Redis is a type of database service, and database services record a bunch of information inside of them. So it says here specifically that this is Redis key value store, and this is version 5.0.7. So we're going to come back to this later. But Redis is a type of database, kind of like SQL databases, SQL databases, except that the interesting thing about the Redis database is that it runs inside of computer memory, which means that the database returns results extremely quickly compared to traditional databases. So let's use a particular command that was meant to interact with Redis to access this service. So the command we're going to use is called Redis CLI. Whenever we use Redis CLI, we need to use the -H flag to indicate which the IP address or the URL of the service that of the server that we want to access. So in this case, we're going to paste in our IP address, and this should let us interact with the Redis database. Okay, so after you run the command, that we see that we're connected at this particular IP address on this particular port. So the first thing we want to do is we want to select a particular database, in which case we want to select 0 to select the first database on the system, and then it gives us the OK, and then we want to see what's inside the database. So we're going to use the keys command, and keys star is going to return all the keys. So we see that there are 4 keys located in the database. There's temp, flag, num, and store. So the obvious choice as to which one of these keys is going to be the objective for this exercise is going to be flag. So we're going to get flag. So we're going to get this particular key, and the value of the key is what we're looking for. So this is the value of the flag that we're looking for in this exercise. Before we submit the flag, let's answer the rest of the questions on the web page. So it says here, which TCP port is open on the machine? So the port that we found was 6379. The next question is, which service is running on the port that is open on this machine? So if you remember, the name of this service is called Redis. Next question, what type of database is Redis? Choose from the following options. 1, in-memory database, or 2, traditional database. So I told you just earlier that Redis is a type of in-memory database, which is different from a traditional database in that it runs a lot faster than regular databases. So we submit that as the answer. The next question is, which command line utility is used to interact with the Redis server? Enter the program name you would enter into the terminal without any arguments. So we used a particular program to interact with the Redis database. It was called Redis-CLI. So that's the answer. Okay, so the next question is, which flag is used with the Redis command line utility to specify the host name? So remember, when we used the Redis CLI command, we had to use a specific flag to specify the host name or IP address, and that was the -H flag. Next question. Once connected to the Redis server, which command is used to obtain the information and statistics about the Redis server? So this is something we skipped over, but this is the info command. So info is the answer. Okay, and the next question is, what is the version of the Redis server being used on the target machine? So if we look back at our nmap scan, okay, I'm going to copy the value of this flag, and then I'm going to exit out of this. Just a second. Okay. So the version of the Redis server was 5.0.7. Okay, so that's the answer. 5.0.7. Next question is, what command is used to select the desired database in Redis? So this one is, the answer is this word right here, select. So we used the select option to select a particular database. The next question is, how many keys are present inside the database with index 0? So when we looked at the database, there were 4 keys located there. So the answer is 4. The next question is, which command is used to obtain all keys in a database? In this case, it was, I think it was get star. Okay, that's not the correct answer. Use Google. Okay, let's take the hint. It seems like the HackTheBox site is pretty slow today. Okay, so the question is, which command is used to obtain all keys in a database? So I'm gonna do some off-screen ChatGPT to ask this question. Which I think right. Okay. This command is keys star. And this is going to retrieve all the keys in the database. Okay, that's the correct answer. Okay, so finally we need to submit the root flag. So we copied the root flag earlier. I'm going to paste this in, and I'm going to submit this as the flag. Okay, so that is the end of this particular challenge. So Redeemer has been completed. So before we finish up, let's review what we did on this particular machine. So we scanned the machine using Nmap, and we found that there was a particular port open on the server. After we enumerated the open port with Nmap, we found that it was a Redis database. So we used a Redis specific program to interact with it, the Redis CLI program, and from there we were able to enumerate we were able to see the contents of the database, and it contained a number of keys. There was a key called flag, which we guessed was the objective for this particular challenge. We read the value of the flag, and then we were able to finish the challenge. Okay, that is Redeemer finished. Okay, so we managed to, what did we manage to do today? So we managed to install the VirtualBox machine, virtual machine manager program, and then we were able to download Kali Linux, and we were able to create a Kali Linux virtual machine using VirtualBox, and then we updated the Kali Linux virtual machine, and then we used Kali Linux to access HackTheBox. So once we got to HackTheBox, we downloaded an access key from HackTheBox that let us connect to their network using OpenVPN. And after we connected to this network using OpenVPN, we were able to access the starting point machines on their starting point network. We completed four different machines today. We Meow, which had a telnet service available on it. Fawn, which had an FTP service available. Dancing, which had an SMB file share. And Redeemer, which had a Redis database. And using the different programs to interact with these services, we were able to get information out of them and complete the challenges. All right, so thank you very much for joining me today. We're probably going to be coming back next week, and we're going to be completing more challenges in the starting point in the HackTheBox starting point listed challenges over here. We've finished all of the free tier 0 machines, so next time we're going to move on to the tier 1 machines over here. So if we take a look over here, we see in the next batch of machines, we're going to learn how to exploit we're going to use SQL injection, and let me reload this page first. Okay, so it looks like HackTheBox is not cooperating with me right now. It's the website is running a bit slow, but suffice it to say that we're going to be covering the tier 1 challenges next week on Friday. But aside from that, we're going to be doing our regular HackerFrogs after school workshop, Linux. We're going to be finishing up the Linux course on Tuesday. If you were expecting it to be on Monday, which it usually is, I'm afraid that is not going to be happening on Monday because there's an event I need to attend on that day, so I'm going to be shifting it over to Tuesday. So it's going to be Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, it's not going to be on Monday once more. It's going to be on Tuesday, and then the extra credit classes are going to be on Wednesday. And the free hacking session where we cover more Hack the Box is going to be next Friday. But thank you very much for watching, everybody, and have a great week, have a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.